I feel like we should have an advisory council driving this. I just think it's worth keeping our eyes on what's happening environmentally in the borough. That's all.
So you can see.
So I'm unclear who can comment at this point.
Public,
Yes.
which is what you would consider.
I would like to see Wyomissing, have a committee, to, make sure we're abreast of the latest and to understand our own environment and how we fit in to the rest of the state and the country. And to be proactive in making changes that are taking.
I agree. My biggest, I think, beef is single-use plastic. We need to step away from it from an environmental perspective. I've done so on my own. But I think as a borough, we could do more. PA State liquor stores are dropping plastic. I just saw Petco is charging 10 cents a bag. That's Wyomissing. There's one of Redner's for probably 20 years has given us 3 cents a bag when we carry our own bag in. Now that's a local bag trying to refute that single-use plastic. No, they don't.
Pemberton doesn't use,
More
Aldi doesn't
Aldi,
use,
more
Lidl,
Lidl.
and Aldi's in the borough.
Yes. So, I think we need to step out of this. We're way behind the times. We're way behind the times.
Sorry that I don't know very much about what the refuse and recycling committee's role has been. I've been generally pleased as a citizen for the recycling we have and so on. I'm a retired physician, so my knowledge of the environment is not great, but I've done some education of myself since retiring and have been involved in watershed monitoring and spent a lot of time in streams monitoring temperatures and so on. And I think it's critically important that community members and borough leadership work together. This is not an environment against progress of the businesses or so on. It's figuring out how to work together to make things better. And I think if you don't have a group that thinks about that and communicates in a way that's open and sharing to try to figure out common solutions, it won't happen. And so if you don't have a group that does that, then it won't happen. So I think it's critically important to have a group that does that, that's open-minded, that is knowledgeable of what's the latest, and that does lead to the improvements in our community. I think people come to live in Wyomissing because it's a beautiful place to live, where you can be proud of the environment, and we know that there are going to be increasing threats to those environments. And so, having something like this council, as Marianne has brought up, I would be strongly supportive, and would love to be able to help other community members see the value of it and to want to work together, not as an anti-group, but as a collaborative group of how we make things work. And so that's why I would be supportive.
Rick Weinhofer, 9th Street. I've been personally active for a long time, just picking up garbage through the community overall. I think that when we look at something like the Environmental Advisory Committee, we have a lot of not only individuals like myself, but also the work we've done through the highway cleanups that I've been part of. Also through the rec board, we had stream cleanup within the past 2 years. There's lots of different veins that we have going on that I think can kind of fall together under the Environmental Advisory Committee that can just pull everything in a single direction and bring all those things together under one group.
One added thing to that, I see we're planting quite a few new trees. We don't tend to plant native trees, and I've seen a lot of dead trees that are natives. I think we need to get on that track as well.
That's ultimately up to the discretion of the tree department. There is a certified arborist on staff that's the head of the tree department who picks those trees for specific reasons. Not to say that we can't lean in a direction more of planning natives, but there are reasons why what is planted where it is planted.
Any other comment, public comments?
I would just like to add that, you know, I did check with other municipalities, other townships that already have implemented, and that's why I'm calling it an environmental advisory council, because Upper Marion Township, which includes the King of Prussia Mall, they already have passed their banning on bags. And I've spoken to, or emailed with, you know, the head of that committee. And it takes a lot of work, you know, sending out surveys, talking to businesses, and residents. And most people are, you know, she said, you're always gonna have naysayers, but most people are getting it. Most people understand that this is the future. We need to help our streams, or, you know, plastics and microplastics in our, in fact, I spoke to somebody else and they said, check your Tuppahawken Creek, you probably know this, it has microplastics in it. So,
Food.
yeah, and foods, right. So, I mean, banning plastics is just one item that I think this Environmental Advisory Council will pursue. And I hope we have a chance to pursue it. I hope we vote on getting a chance to pursue this. Sending out surveys, you know, somebody just said to me this morning, how about a brush pile? Do we, you know, Spring Township has a brush pile. I'm like, okay, well, why don't you be on our committee? You know, I said to this gentleman. It's all these things, you start talking to people and they're like, yes, we're aware of it, but we need a forum to get together and discuss these things. And it's not gonna happen overnight, I understand that, but that's the part of me that wanted to be on the Refuse and Recycling Committee for 10 years or more than 10 years, because I thought we need to do a little bit more, not just looking at our statistics, but, you know, and the highway cleanup was just one little side of it, and it came under the auspices of R&R committee, but I just feel like this is something that if the R&R committee is going to be disbanded, then maybe this is, and I'm hoping that this is something that we can pursue. And it'll be a different direction, but I think it'll be a great direction for our borough. That's it.
I would just say that I really do think that there are a lot of citizens of Wyomissing who would like to be supportive, and particularly if they knew that the things that were being done were under the aegis of the borough. And so I think this would kind of link them to be collaborative in terms of working with them.
Can we move agenda 7 up? We're discussing the environmental.
Well, I think first we need to talk about number 6, which is what is the future.
Okay, all right. I was just trying to, since we were talking about number 7, but, okay, that's good. Any other comments regarding council? Okay. Let's move on to review of refuse recycling landfill yard waste.
So wait, are you jumping to number 6 or are you just going?
4.
No,
4.
Okay.
I did 4, number 4.
So your tonnage reports, you're looking at landfill tonnage at the moment, which is your typical refuse, your garbage. Not any significant considerable change. Oops, sorry. Click on the trigger there.
So but it has increased.
It has increased.
Yeah.
It's increasing, no question about it.
Is that 5.5% an increase over previous year, or what is that, at the very bottom, 5.5?
Yes.
That's what.
Yeah, that's a lot more stuff going to the landfill.
This is your recycling tonnage report. You can see these kind of go backwards. So,
And that's
That's down.
no, you're up. Your total in 2022, well, your average was 70.6. Your average, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going backwards.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the
Right,
wrong
right.
end. Yeah, that is down.
Yes.
Really, the trend is awful.
Well, I mean, your percentage point change is about equal between refuse.
And,
So recycling less than throwing out more.
So, right, you're throwing more out instead of recycling.
Yep.
Yes.
Your yard waste tonnage, and to kind of circle back to one of the comments that was made about, yard waste dump site in Spring Township.
oh, brush, yeah.
We don't have one for a few reasons. One, they're very hard to monitor. I know one of the problems Spring Township has had is non-residents coming and dumping things.
Yeah,
We-
he told me that they're gonna start, asking for ID.
So, I mean, then you're either looking at a fenced-in space, you need staff to monitor it. We also currently don't have a place to put it. We are one of the few, I think we might be the only remaining municipality in Berks County that has a yard waste program with curbside yard waste pickup. Let me pull this up a little bit. This is our performance grant history. So one of the things we do every year is in January, we send letters out to all the commercial businesses in the borough. They're required to self-report and provide copies of reports from their contracted recycling hauler. They send those to us, we go through and do, it's like an Excel spreadsheet of all of the totals for every type of recycling. Those totals are then compiled together. We submit that information, between now and the end of the year for the state's 904 recycling grant. And this is showing you the amount that we've received over the years. The totals don't necessarily have anything to do with the amounts reported, it's more funding available from the state. Like you can see in some years, there were obviously significantly more funds awarded than others. And then this is the results from our bulk trash event that's held every spring.
Except they didn't report this.
Yes, it's because they forgot about it. We no longer have that hauler. Does anybody have any questions on the reports?
Wait, so 2023, in May, that also wasn't reported? You mean for 2022 and 23, it's now a different hauler?
They didn't forget about it this year.
No, they didn't forget about it, there's a note right there at the bottom in yellow that says, the refuse was not separated out. The numbers
Oh.
weren't separated out.
Okay. So I see, you estimated
Right.
at 86 tons, I see.
Which would be significantly higher than pretty much any other year other than 2018. But, I mean, again, who knows, because 22 was an estimate.
Right.
Is that it? Any questions regarding that? If not, we'll move on to item 5, review of refuse and recycling hauler performance.
The missed stops report is, again, too quick on the trailer here, is up on the screen. Mascaro's been great about when we are notified of a missed stop, going back and getting it the same day. I can say I was also notified about a month ago, a resident provided me with camera footage from their porch camera of their can not being put back where it was supposed to be. And the employee was actually suspended for a day by Mascaro. They take that very seriously.
Where are they supposed to be put back to?
Effectively, the curb.
My street, it's not happening.
I mean, where do you live? Because depending where you live is,
Wyomissing Hills Boulevard, and that's where they should be off the street.
so they pick up in front of your house, like in that planning strip
Correct.
area. I mean, then you need to call us and let us know when that happens.
This was a difficult read because there were no lines in between, so I was like, okay, what's the X?
It'd be nice to have columns.
Yeah, or just separated.
I'm not sure if that's converting the columns right there, because that's an Excel spreadsheet, isn't it?
Yeah, just so that we know what house is referred to.
Well, the
And then
axis,
a comment, yeah, but the comment is like below it, I'm just not, I wasn't quite sure, but.
Yeah, when the part says claims are surrounding neighbors, we're also missed as
It's for 15
Tewksbury
Tewksbury.
or when they're, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, this is an Excel spreadsheet, I don't know why when it converted over to PDF, the lines didn't come through, but we can certainly fix that for the future.
The point is, you're on top of all these complaints as they come in, you discuss them, ask Carol, and they're resolved.
Correct.
Right.
The same day.
Yeah, and if
Yeah.
not the same day, there's a clause in the contract, we can find them.
Right.
It seems like their performance overall has been better than the business.
That is an understatement.
You're very happy with them?
Compared to the predecessor, yes.
Yes.
Oh, and the guys are delightful. They really are. I mean, personality.
Yeah.
They're very polite.
Yes,
Don't
they
let
are.
traffic by and don't hold up
Mhm,
things like
mhm.
No
in
one's
prior
chatting.
years. Yeah.
Great. Well, that's good. Any other comments regarding number 5? If not, we'll move on to refuse and recycling committee future. Any comments?
It seems to me that in part we've had a failure of imagination. It seems to me that in part we have been stuck on looking at these reports. I thought Marianne had a great idea of approaching businesses, to ask them to post signs reminding people to bring bags, and she got a major smackdown. And I thought it was a great idea, so I didn't understand why she's being criticized for implementing what the committee told her to do, but if we're not willing to do things like that, then of course we don't deserve to exist, because that is a minimal effort. It would have required minimal funding by the borough, and just approaching businesses to remind people so we can avoid wasting all this plastic. But if we don't have the will to do something as small as that, then we shouldn't exist. But it seems to me there are going to be a lot more opportunities like that. We should expand the scope to include environmental. I would prefer to have a committee of the borough rather than a council, but I don't really.
That's
Well,
what
the
other,
point-
I mean,
Right,
I'm using
yeah.
council only because other municipalities use
And I
that.
don't care, I mean, I think the mandate ought to be expanded, so it's more clearly environmental, but, we've got to decide, are we only going to look at reports, in which case we shouldn't exist, or are we going to get more proactive? And are we willing to approach businesses, are we willing to approach people, are we willing to give information, are we willing to give reminders? I mean, to me, it's that simple. Are we willing to do more or not? Because if we're not, we don't deserve to exist.
I think there's a follow-up question to that as to who is we, is it the committee or is it staff? Because, that's another piece of the puzzle, if it's staff figuring out who that is and what the time allotment for it is. The program we were talking about, you were fantastic, Mary Ann, that you were willing to go out and, talk to the businesses directly. But if that's something that staff is gonna be tasked with in the future, that's a bigger personnel conversation then too.
Right, but for every project, there has to be that conversation.
Yes.
It's not a global conversation, it has to be on a project-by-project basis. So, I think, Mary Ann was fabulous in her commitment, and her emotional commitment as well as time commitment. And I presume that Mary Ann and other people would be willing to approach businesses. I think if the borough were involved in a project like that, it might be providing addresses or sending out letters. I don't think that's a whole lot of staff time, but it's easy for me to say because I don't do it. But in any event, it would have to be assessed on a project-by-project basis.
Yes, I just wanted to communicate expectations up front.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, you're
And
stretching it in a way
I'm thinking
that.
more surveys to, if we started with, just residents, if we could use your email, we would, whatever we do, this committee, would of course have to be,
I can
tough
tell
for
you
you, but,
from other surveys we've sent out, the response is poor.
yeah, well, but I think it also makes people aware of what might be coming down the pike, what we're interested in and what, we're saying, hey, how do you feel about using reusable bags and the borough banning plastic bags, single-use plastic bags. And even businesses, I don't know if you have email addresses for them, we can do it so that and we can get the surveys back, or if you got the surveys back, just send them to us to review as a committee. But I'm trying to cut down on expenses. If we're gonna probably, I'm sure we'll need a budget at some point, but it's something that emails, surveys, would cost nothing other than a little bit of time.
Actually, SurveyMonkey does cost something. It's
Okay.
$500 a year.
That's-
Well, do you use it
That's,
already?
that's minimal.
Do we cancel it?
No, we haven't.
You have it, but you don't know how to use it. So,
But-
if you have it, then we'll just jump in on it.
Right, but we, again,
Right, it's,
we'd have to focus on a project, local resources
Right.
and, because, Rick, is also on the rec board and we had 3 walks and that was an opportunity to approach residents in the park. Hey, do you know about this? We have my rec site, we have these, here's a new brochure, this, that. And there are different ways to approach people, so I think that's probably more productive than a survey personally, but again,
okay.
I think
if we don't exist, we have to have a way, we have to have some kind of entity in order to address these problems. So whether it's a committee, a council,
I think the concern I heard when this was brought up with council earlier in the year was, at least for the businesses, the economic impact on, we've always been very business friendly. We bend over backwards to support businesses to come here because of the implication on our tax base. So at the very least, before a lot of effort was expended, I would wanna have a conversation with Redner's, Walmart, the ones that we talked about before, maybe like the dollar stores, as to, even now that I'm thinking about it, the Rite Aids, the CVS's, what if any implication would there be on you as a business if the borough banned single-use plastic? Because I think that's an answer
Sure.
the group needs to get ahead of, to present that to council eventually if you're going that way, as to, we already know it's not gonna be an impact, or we did talk to these businesses and there are some concerns.
but
I would say-
even before that, Mary Ann's idea, you post signs reminding people, you take the
Yes.
bag out of the trunk of your car,
Yes.
so you don't,
Baby
that's
steps.
more a volunteer program, but we weren't even willing to do that.
What are we gonna say, Tom?
I think that a
Sorry,
large box.
we have to be really careful, it's not public comment.
Yeah, but it's
Yes,
not a
right.
conversation,
Yes.
yeah.
We already had the focus on it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, may I speak about it?
Yeah, you're on the committee.
Yeah, you're on the committee. You're
I said I contacted, Upper Marion Township, and this woman who's the head of their committee, said that the businesses they contact businesses in their township, and, businesses like Wawa, Giant, Target, Home Depot were expecting the ban, and other businesses in that municipality said they only buy plastic bags weekly or a few days or never in a huge supply. And so most of them were like anticipating this, and that's why I'm saying, if we sent out some type of survey, or when we approach businesses, they know it's coming, we have it in other townships. I just would love for Wyomissing to be the first in Berks to say, hey, we're banning plastic bags, or whatever we're doing. Be a leader. We should be the leader in this county. So I think reaching out to stores and restaurants, they're gonna be impacted by the bans. And so give them a reasonable time period to adjust to it. It's not gonna happen overnight, it might take a year or more. That's just one aspect of this advisory committee, the banning of plastic bags. But again, if we could just get signs up that say, did you remember your reusable bag? That's a great start. And I think most businesses would be happy to do that. It's costing them less if they don't have to give out single-use plastic bags, so.
So I think first, cause that's kind of out of, it's on topic, but at the same time, you as a committee need to decide, I mean, that's what the motion's on there for, maybe you don't disband, maybe you just rename yourselves.
I was just thinking.
Or
that.
maybe you do disband and you start an environmental advisory committee, of which one of the responsibles is to continue to review refuse, recycling, yard waste, and other environmental issues as they impact the borough.
That's what I would think, you'd combine, environmental would include recycling and.
Right, especially noticing that our landfill is up and the recycling's down, that's not a good sign.
Michelle, you offered to call the county and ask for,
I did, and she didn't get back to me.
James.
Which is unusual.
James,
because we're hoping that she would have some ideas.
great.
I would think, you know, council's gonna probably wanna know more information as what would this council or committee do? Are we prepared to make a recommendation to them without telling them what we propose to do?
I mean, I think you could keep it pretty broad scope of continue to discuss refuse, recycling, and yard waste issues as they arise, 'cause I do think that's an important component. I mean, if you have a hauler like we had last year and 5 years prior to that, that needs to be discussed and there needs to be, you know, interaction. But then also you could bring in, again, under the purview of that committee is other environmental issues as they may impact the borough and its residents, including pollution,
What I think environmentally,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know that you need to change the name, but I think you need to change.
the scope and
The scope,
responsibilities.
yes.
right, I would change the name, to maybe environmental council or environmental committee.
Because refuse and
Something like
recycling doesn't lend itself to,
Beg pardon?
refuse and recycling doesn't lend itself to, and other environmental issues
Well, I
as.
mean, you call it an environmental refuse and recycling.
Well,
Who cares?
refuse and
I mean,
recycling certainly is
the
involved in the
committee.
Yeah,
environment.
there you go.
That certainly affects the environment, refuse and recycling.
Mhm.
Certainly a strong component of it, I think.
So I would keep it one form or another.
Okay.
I don't know whether you, as the borough manager, have some thoughts on whether a committee or council makes a hill of beans bit of difference.
We've never had a council, so I would say committee.
I would
And-
regret,
I mean, also going back to the state borough code, there's very specific parameters as to even if you're a first or second class township versus a borough versus a city, the type of groups, boards, commissions you can have.
Well, the other issue is, it would have to be made up more of residents. More residents would have to be approved on this committee.
Which is not necessarily a problem, but again, without having the state borough code and or the solicitor here, normally for any type of committee, there are state requirements as to you have so many elected officials that have to be on it versus so many non-elected / resident members.
I mean, because otherwise it wouldn't, I don't know how it's going to work if we don't have people like these that are here to be on the committee. It would be me and borough council members that, you know, may not wish to get involved in something like this.
Well, you can be involved even if you're not on the committee.
Yes.
I mean, people, you know, we welcome public comment. It's
Right.
great to have somebody finally come to one of these committees, and have opinions and show support.
Right,
But
but I
you
would
can
want
look
them
at-
to be able to speak when we're discussing stuff like, you know, from the
Well,
environmental.
but part of the problem is that it gets unwieldy.
that's why I have public comment.
Yeah, that's, yes,
Yeah.
so it's, and that's true of all our committees, there's no getting
Right.
around that.
Yeah, well, if you speak to the solicitor, I would ask that we have more residents who are willing to be, you know, to be on this committee and be able to speak up.
I would think, I mean, I'm just thinking of planning commission, park and shade, rec board, I mean, the quorum does not have to be council. Normally it's 2 to 3 council members and then the balance to be just regular residents.
Okay.
The issue of volunteers, we talk about volunteerism all the time and the lack thereof. you know, so now we're asking, let's have a committee with a lot of volunteers. And,
I think I could get the volunteers.
well, okay.
Is
But,
it
I mean,
possible
it's not
for
a-
me to speak and say, many of us were not even aware of the volunteer opportunities. So it's hard, I mean, I think something should go out so residents
Okay.
know what's available.
We have a comment.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Well, then let me say
Adhere to
that
the
a lot of
rules. Right.
residents
Now let her-
are not aware of, you know, of opportunities here.
So I mean, part of that is as every calendar year, towards the end of the year, we're there right now, as we go into a new calendar year, the appointment of members to committees, commissions, and boards is at the discretion of council president. So that's, I mean, we do sometimes like Park and Shade, we just kind of, as a group, that commission put feelers out as to, do we know people in the community who are interested? But normally a slot's open up on different committees, it's not something we advertise on the website, because ultimately, it's one person's decision.
But that doesn't mean we could.
Correct.
We can certainly
Put
suggest
something
that,
out, right, put
because I
something
would
out on
think
the
we need to
website.
broaden our.
Yeah, because
field.
refuse and
Yes.
recycling only has me and Eric, are the two residents, non-council people that are on this committee.
So then,
And that's unusual.
Is it? Yeah.
Well, for some committees.
really,
But I mean, you're talking about, but the commissions are different, I'm sorry.
yes, and the board. So if you think
Right.
of planning commission and then rec board, those are the ones that are different.
Right, so it could be either one of those models.
That's
So
why
I think, I think our proposal would be to broaden the scope so it includes environmental, and either have it be a board or commission or committee, whichever permits us to have the most non-borough council members.
you want a majority of resident members.
Yes.
Well, we still have that as a committee, couldn't we?
Again, without having the state
Right,
borough
right,
code in
but-
front of me, if you think of all of your
I'm not
committees,
sure.
if you think of all of your committees, so infrastructure, fire, they're all a form of council.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, so I think not. I think it probably can't be a committee for that
that's
reason.
a lawyer decision.
Oh, well.
So I guess you need to vote as a committee what you wanna do with
Right.
refuse and recycling as it is, and then if you wanna change it into something else,
Yeah,
a second.
incorporate it.
I'm going to make a
Something else.
motion that the refuse and recycling committee be terminated if it is simultaneously replaced by a board or commission consisting of a majority members of residents, and which has a portfolio which includes environmental issues as well as refuse and recycling.
That a
Nice to
formal
see.
motion?
It is. I need
Do
a
I have a
second.
second?
What do you think?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
There's only 3 members here, so 2. So being a mathematician, 2 out of 3, the motion is approved. To move that forward to council.
Thank you.
thank you.
That pretty much takes care of number 7 also, I
Correct.
believe, because you're incorporating 7 into 6.
I am.
Thank you, Tom.
Go ahead.
Any more comments? So that motion will be forwarded to council.
I'm Michael King's
Yes,
mom.
yes, that's.
Good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Any other comments on the environment and refuse? I think we've sort of talked that out, so.
It's the longest refuse and recycling meeting ever.
Yeah, I know, jeez. And this is my busy morning. But anyway, okay, I guess we move on to old business. Is there any old business?
No, and please remember that we now have to be more careful about the things that we talk about that are not on the agenda.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm talking to Chris, I don't see how we can possibly have new business under that ruling.
Correct.
no. You might as well take it off the agenda.
Unless it's an
Other than-
emergency action. I mean, even then, that's questionable.
Yeah.
Unless you amend the agenda.
Can't even do that anymore.
Nope,
Really?
No.
right, yeah.
then why do you can't have any business, but anyway. Is there anything, any old business? None? Motion to adjourn?
So
Okay, adjourn. Thank you for your comments.
one let you, if you're interested, what the Borough Council President has asked is that Melissa take people's names and contact information. So if you would be interested in participating in the next iteration, please let her know.
I will also,
Yes.
I have multiple friends and neighbors who live in the borough who also would be very interested in
Well,
this.
that's,
That's
And,
true. Good to hear.
may not be accountant, it would be a committee, if I could account.
Yeah.
Great.
Contributing to the community.
Absolutely.
Yes.